Hello there everyone and welcome back to the channel. It is a very sunny and warm day here in Moscow, and seeing as how I am standing out in front of my metro station, you know what that means. We are off to explore another part of the city. Today the destination is Alekseyevskaya. You know the drill at this point in time, so let's just get to it.
Переход на Арбатско-Покровскую линию. Наземный переход на станцию Поклонная 4-го диаметра. О подозрительных предметах. Станция Киевская. Переход на Килевскую и Кольцевую линии. Станция Проспект Мира. Переход на Калужско-Рижскую линию. Поезд следует до станции ВДНХ.
Okay, so we are here on the platform at Alekseyevskaya. There's really not too much to highlight here at this metro station, but we're going to take a quick walk around. You can see they've got some of the old light fixtures there. They've obviously put in the new lamps on them, but the actual design is still the same, still the circular one. The actual station itself is pretty straightforward. You got the, I don't know, tiles on the wall. You got the marble everywhere. A lot of stations from this line, quite loud in here, so and note this empty wall right here. I'll tell you a story about that in a little bit when we get outside. For the most part though, a lot of stations on the orange line when they opened up all had a very similar structure like this. They're all kind of generic in that regard. There's not too much to note. About the only decorative elements are these ventilation coverings right here, and that's about it. The one nice touch you might say is the green marble. I don't think this is malachite. I don't think that's the case, but yeah. Pretty basic, straightforward station. There's not too much to note in the actual station itself, but there's a little bit of history connected to it, which I will share when we get outside. Okay, so as you can see, this is the only vestibule for Alekseyevskaya. It is a circular one. There are a lot of these also from that same time period. Again, really nothing exciting or special to note here. When they were expanding the metro in the 1950s, they didn't put a lot of thought into it. This was the Khrushchev era, and so a lot of the maximalist design choices that you would have found during the Stalin era were no longer in practice. That was a Khrushchev king. That's an entirely different subject, but there's only one exit here. It was originally supposed to be integrated into a residential building. That just never happened. But regardless, there's a nice square here when you come out of the metro. I am going to share that story connected to the blank wall in just a second. But before we get too far deeper into that area, I want to not show not those, but just we're on Prospect Mira. This is, in a lot of ways, the big draw, the reason that you come up here. I'm going to kind of pop out. It might be a little bit loud. It is, luckily, not a work day, so hopefully the traffic's a little less. But you can see how the buildings form a canyon here. And this is a Stalinist era design choice. But yeah, we're going to actually go down a little ways here. And I'm going to show you a building a little way up here. I'm going to make a quick jump, and we're going to take a look at one of these more grandiose buildings up close. Okay, so it might be a little bit loud. I am still right next to the road, but I think it's okay. I'm going to flip the camera around, and we're going to take a look. This is across the way. I don't remember what building this is right off the top of my head. I will put the name of it down below. But the one I actually wanted to highlight, or the ensemble, we have on both sides here, two shorter residential buildings. And then in the middle, this behemoth brick residential building. I believe this is 16 floors, although the first floor is basically 2 stories tall. And the final floor, depending on, you can see somebody seems to have purchased that little area up there and turned it into an apartment, whereas on the opposite side, it is still open. So it kind of depends on how many floors you want to count, but I think it is technically 16. Regardless, this is that sort of classic, at least in the residential end of things, classic Stalinist architecture that I think a lot of people associate with Moscow, and I think rightfully so. It is one of the defining features of a lot of the major roads in the city. They were done intentionally like Prospect Mira. Kutuzovsky Prospect is another one that is like that as well. So, and I think when people perhaps get a little bit flustered with some of the architectural choice in the city, it's because of what the calling card of the city, you might call, is. But we'll take a closer look at the building. It's a little bit interesting too when you get closer up here, especially the, I don't know what you would call it, I guess the stones on the first floor. But yeah, right. It is a massive thing. Got the old cast iron lighting devices too, and nothing too crazy, but it works, right? It looks nice. I don't know, I love this style. I'm not a huge fan of Prospect Mira as a road, just sort of throwing that out there. But anyway, I wanted to show these buildings, kind of highlight them. Even I think, what is the decorative element there up at the top? You can see somebody made a little balcony for themselves, although that might actually be intentional. Sometimes there are things like with balconies on the side of buildings that look like somebody just decided to slap it on there, but were actually intended in the first place. So it's sometimes hard to tell. Okay, let me go back to the metro. I was talking about the metro, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the name of the metro first. So, the name of the metro, obviously, Alekseyevskaya, but it wasn't always called that. In fact, the history of the name of the metro is kind of long and complicated, but don't worry, I'll take you through it. So, Alekseyevskaya was the name of the metro when it was in the planning phases, which is a reference to a village that was in this area, which the first written remembrance of it is in the 14th century. So this is an area that people have been inhabiting, that has been inhabited for centuries now. I'm just going to cross over since this person's parking. And so when they were doing the construction, Alekseyevskaya was the name of the metro. This is in their like 1954, something along those lines. However, in 1957, according to one of the city commissions in Moscow at that time, the name was changed to Shcherbakovskaya. Now, it was supposed to be in honor of Shcherbakov, who died in 1945. He was a member of Stalin's, the communist Politburo. He looked like an adult version of Piggy from Lord of the Flies, which I find absolutely delightful. Anyway, and he died of a heart attack, maybe not a huge surprise there. The metro name was changed in 1957, but then right before it was set to open in 1958, it was changed to Mir. Now, the reason for this, supposedly, is that Khrushchev, who was then leader of the Soviet Union at the time, did not like Shcherbakov. In fact, Khrushchev tried to underplay a lot of the Stalin era, for good reason, you would argue. But so then in 1958, it was changed from Shcherbakovskaya to Mir, which is a reference to the road that it exits out onto, Prospect Mira, which you can translate as either peace or world, kind of depending on the context of the sentence in Russian. And the name of the metro station remained Mir until 1966, which, if I'm not mistaken, is when Khrushchev kind of finished his tenure. And at that point in time, I might be off on that date though, don't quote me on that. In 1966, the name of the metro station was changed back to Shcherbakovskaya. And it remained Shcherbakovskaya for the rest of the Soviet Union until 1990, when there were whispers of naming it Nova Alekseyevskaya, which is like New Alekseyevskaya. But thankfully, they just, in 1990, took the name back to the original planned name of Alekseyevskaya. So, Alekseyevskaya to Shcherbakovskaya to Mir to Shcherbakovskaya to finally Alekseyevskaya once again. Very long, very complicated. And I mentioned that blank wall at the end of the station. Seems like it was built intentionally for something, and that's because it was. In the brief period of time in 1957, after they decided to name it Shcherbakovskaya, they actually commissioned a bas-relief to adorn, right, one of those sculptures that kind of 3D pops out of the wall a little bit. They actually got a bas-relief of Shcherbakov to adorn that back wall. But again, when Khrushchev decided that it was not going to fly and that they were going to change the name of the metro station to Mir, the Shcherbakov bas-relief was erased, and that was the end of that. So, kind of a simple station, architecturally speaking, right? Really not too much to write home about. But in just the war of the names was well in effect with that one. So, all right, I've been walking through kind of a basic, simple area. I will show a school, old Soviet school. They're not all pink, but a lot of times they do have, I'll try to zoom in here in post. They have these little white circular bas-relief statues to various academic figures. But we are entering quite a newer built-up region. And this is going to be something that we're going to be seeing quite a bit of. And it's something that I have thoughts on. In fact, when we get a little bit later, well, a little bit later today as I'm filming, but in probably a video or two from now when we get, I think, to the final one, I have some thoughts to share about this area. And I took a slightly different approach to it this time, even though you watching right now don't know about it, but I guess that's foreshadowing. But honestly, this is a hotel, but I don't think it's all hotel. If it is all hotel, it's kind of nuts. Actually, might all be a hotel. But anyway, I like this. It's very, I don't know. I think stone and brick is something that they should go back to more on the whole. It's not difficult, even if that's not like 100% the actual real brick that they've got there and just a covering, a pretty cheap one. I mean, it's still better than what we'll see here in a little bit. But yeah, okay. We're actually going to cross the road over there, but I'm just gonna speed us through the process. Okay, so we are here in front of that new, I guess, business center. This is actually an office complex. Over on the other side here, you actually have apartments for the most part. And they're quite nice. They look, in fact, they look really nice. So I guess I might as well spill the beans now. My wife and I were here a week ago. I was interested in checking out one of the things with her because I oftentimes feel, even though this is only the third metro station, I kind of feel sometimes like I'm leaving her out, and it's maybe would be interesting for her to come take a look at some of the stuff. So I decided we had a free day on the weekend and decided to go check it out. And she was also a fan of how they look. Now, I will say, my wife is one of those people who loves to read and check all of the reviews and see what people have to say about it. Turns out it looks really nice, but that there are some perhaps issues with the overall construction. And we'll talk a little bit more about the company behind this. Etalon is the name of it. We'll see their name plastered all over the place here. But since I start with the pastry and a coffee, we're actually going to be going over here to grab that right now. Although today, I'm not going to have a coffee. I know, it's kind of strange, because we're going to a tea house, Moskovskaya chayная, which is right over here. You can see above the door there, they've got the, it's a little bit hard to see, but they have a samovar stashed away. There's also one in the opening up there. But I'm gonna go grab the tea and I'll meet you back outside. Oh, let's take a look inside first though. All right, so last time I did a very poor job of highlighting the actual food. So I'm gonna do a better job of that hopefully today. I got the Moscow tea. It's supposed to be like the historic blend. I didn't really read what was in it because it wasn't really written there, and I didn't bother to find out. So it is hot. I'm going to take the lid off so it cools down just a bit. Don't worry, trash will go where it's supposed to. Got these tea bags, sure. Okay, and then I got a Plюshka. Now, Plюshka is one of those things that is, I don't know exactly, it's kind of, like I got the one with sugar. You can also get with chocolate. I think cinnamon's also one of the things too. They've got it like a heart. That's so cute and adorable, right? I feel like it's kind of like a butter cookie, but not exactly. It's like a butter cookie meets a pastry. And I know there's a type of pastry that's like that. I just cannot think of the name of it right now. So anyway, I guess all right, not gonna lie, that's actually really good. It is basically like a big, soft butter cookie. You know, like the little sugar on top of it and everything like that. And I love those little cookies, you know, at the holidays, winter holidays and stuff like that. I just go absolutely ham on those things. Why we don't buy them that much, because they don't last very long. And there's no need to, I don't know, to gorge myself on them. But yeah, that's actually really good. I feel like the chocolate would just undercut the, because it's got a very. I want to drink the tea here, but give me a second here. I'm kind of fixated on this right now. So it's got a really soft inside right there, right? You can kind of see how soft it is, which I'm assuming is supposed to be. You can actually see though it's baked also like a normal bread product. So I don't know if it's just like with Plюshka, if there are those different layers in it. Because I'll be honest, I've lived here for way too long now in terms of not having ever eaten a Plюshka before. If I have, I've forgotten. But yeah, all right. I mean, for sure. The carrot cake I had last time at Okruzhnaya, also really good. I'm kind of obsessed with that cake place, Cake Home, and I think I mentioned in one of those videos too that turns out one of those locations is actually on our side of the city. So when it gets to be birthday time or time when cake is needed, I feel like that is where I'll be hitting it up in the future, because there are a lot of, they actually have a box too where you can sample like all 12 of their flavors. Anyway, that's there. I'm getting hung up. Anyway, it's just, I'm very pleasantly surprised. So let's give the tea a shot. Gotta make sure that does not blow away. Still kind of hot, but kind of black tea, slightly fruity. I don't know, it's okay. It's like around 1 o'clock in the afternoon right now. I mean, we typically have tea in the morning. That's kind of how it works, I think, in a lot of homes in Russia. So I had tea before I left to come out and film. I guess I'll just continue having tea. Anyway, I'm not going to sit here and force you to spectate as I finish my Plюshka and my drink here. So I'm gonna wrap this up. Not sure how long it'll take. I'm gonna enjoy it, but then once we're done, or once I'm done, I'll show you a little bit of this area because it is quite interesting. But first we eat, or I eat. So this is the territory Vodopribor. This is one of those areas that is also very well connected to the history of the city. So this whole area dates back in terms of kind of usefulness to the city to the mid-18th century. In the mid-18th century is when the city started to bring its water supply in, partially from the north side of the city, from up in this area. And then in the mid-19th century, so I guess about half a century later, they built up a series of pumping stations in this area. And that is what all of these brick buildings behind me are. This is all, Vodopribor is this old facility connected to water pumping stations. And for a very long time, before the revolution, after the revolution, this was a main artery for water to the city. Now, they have been fixing it up in recent years. You can see a little bit of reconstruction still on one of the buildings back there. The water fountain is connected to, it's supposed to be a reference to the drinking fountains in Paris. You saw it up close just a second ago. And it is based on sketches by the sculptor Charles Auguste Lebuc. But you can see in general, the territory has been completely redone. All of these red brick buildings are newly renovated, and it is now office space for the most part. Like, these are offices. Obviously, there was the tea house over that way, but the territory itself is quite nice, quite well maintained, and that's because it is connected to that construction group, Etalon, which is the group responsible for building all of those quite nice-looking residential buildings that I showed you just a little bit ago. Now, there are a few other things here worth highlighting that I'm going to show you real fast. But for the most part, it is just kind of a business park. I don't know the exact history, but my guess would be that Etalon bought this territory and they wanted to build a bunch of houses here, which they did. But probably one of the things was that these buildings might have been architectural monuments. And so they couldn't tear them down. And so what they did is they have fixed them up, which honestly, in this situation is great. As far as I understand, they didn't tear down any of this. Some of this is obviously reworked. We've got the smokestack here. We have what, I'm gonna get a better angle of it. It might be hard to see with the sun from the direction, but the windows all look not new, right? They look relatively old. So I would imagine that these buildings just got a fresh coat of paint and a bit of some touch-up work. The fire escape there, that wrought iron back and forth, quite intricate. I mean, intricate. Obviously, the air conditioning units kind of take away from the historic vibe, but there's not much you can do about that. That's kind of fair. And I love the smokestack, just absolutely great. So, as far as I know, like I said, these are all the original buildings. Not very much was done to them. There's enough visual information. Again, the windows are a really good clue that lead me to believe that they didn't do too much, at least to the main walls. And, you know, the interiors are, from what I have gleaned peeking through the windows, completely redone. Obviously, you can probably tell that too, because this art box building, or this art box, whatever you want to call it here, is a museum space. So all of the walls in there have been changed, all of the lighting has been changed. But, you know, from a point of view of, if you've got like really kind of high-end real estate up that way, and then you build all of this up here while keeping the historical buildings and the overall historical layouts, then that's a huge selling point. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I would love to see that happen more often. But we're going to come back to the topic of Etalon a little bit later, just because they have been in the news in a similar situation and it's maybe not as good. But regardless, there is this also plaque right here. So yeah, the водопровод, снабжающий город Москву Мытищинскую водью, сооружен в царствование императора Александра III. So yes, not the water, the water pipe, which takes снабжающий, gives water to the city of Moscow from the Mytishinsky water during the reign of Alexander III. So, like I said, mid-19th century. But they've got names for all of the people who worked on it, and then over here too. Yeah, I mean, they've got the little bit of some historical information as well. You can see, right? This would be where they would have poured some of the metal. Литейная кузница. Yeah. Hold up. Does it say right there? Yeah, this would have been more of the industrial buildings. And then they have the engineer over here, Zimin, I believe, Nikolai Petrovich. So they turned it into a bit of an outdoor museum. And I think that's fine. I like this type of marriage of old architecture, old historical buildings, reworked but saved, and then turned into something of a, like I said, of an open air historical museum with their new residential or new buildings kind of in close relation. But even here, right, you can see the design's a little bit different, but I can get a little bit closer. You can see, right, we've got red bricks, and it's a very stone. In fact, I think the name of the residential complex is Stone Island. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, I mean, the buildings are a little bit different, right? Obviously that one over there is a different style than this one, but they're not totally incompatible with these buildings over here. So I think this is a great little complex. And I do love the idea. And I think where it is in the city too, I'm not a huge fan of like massive lots of new construction, right? But Alekseyevskaya is kind of a special region. I guess I'll talk about that a little bit later though. Let's get out of here because we need to go over this way. I found out though, you gotta go through this special door. So we're gonna do that right now. Здравствуйте. All right, everyone, and with that, we are going to be ending this video. I think there are going to be 3 total for Alekseyevskaya, and after the next one, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the real estate group Etalon, which is responsible for fixing up those old brick buildings of Vada Pribor, and also building the Silver Fountain residential complex. They have been in the news here recently with regards to a new project that they're working on, and some other historic, or a other historic building. But seeing as how the weather here in Moscow is getting ready to switch over to summer mode, it's going to be really warm, it's going to be really warm, and it's going to be really sunny as well. I want to get out and film some more regions while the weather is conducive to that. So it's been a while since we've done it, but it's time for us to revisit the Wheel of Names. Now, I have removed Alekseyevskaya, Okruzhnaya, and Krasnoselskaya, so we won't be seeing those again. Okay. And we're going to be doing 4 this time. That way I can just keep going and going and going. So the first one we got is at the very end of the red line. It's Kommunarka. It's not quite the very end of the red line, but that is pretty close to it. Okay. So that's a very, very new district. That's one that kind of maybe could be a little bit interesting for people to see what some of those newer areas are like. I don't think I've been down there exactly, but the second one, Arbatskaya, right in the most touristic part of the city. Although I suppose with everything that's going on, might as well get a look at what the center of the city is like, especially Arbatskaya here in the summertime. I'm being punished, I think, in some way, but okay, whatever. That's fair. I think for a lot of people, they do like to see those more famous and touristic places. But what do we get here? I want something weird. Nagatinsky Zaton. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I actually made a video about this metro stop, this one with all the fish on it. So you can check that out now in advance. I do like that area a lot. So, okay, all right, we're cooking here. And what's the 4th one? What do we got here? Wheel, give me something good. I mean, these are pretty good. These are pretty good right now. Let's get a wild card. Let's get a wild card in here. You know what I'm saying? So I'm jazzed about this selection. Smolenskaya. That is literally right before Arbatskaya. It's just literally right in that same area. That's okay. That's okay. We'll make it work. The thing with the center is, I'm going to get this out. The thing with the center is because the stations overlap so heavily, I won't be having to cover as much ground, which means I'll be able to focus on a very small area, which also means too that it'll make filming those, they'll probably be shorter videos, right? Like with Alekseyevskaya, Okruzhnaya, God forbid, Krasnoselskaya, those have all been 3 minimum, in Krasnoselskaya's case, significantly more. With the ones inside the center of the city, even though there's like a lot of historical stuff there, some of it is like it's just overlapped and it's a much smaller territory. So I'm just going to really probably choose a specific area in the Smolenskaya metro station circle, which I find super interesting and which is, I don't know, we'll go with it. We'll make it work. So we'll do, it kind of works out well. There was Kommunarka, which is a new district on the edge of the city. And then we had, I can't even remember now, Arbatskaya was in there. We had Smolenskaya, and we literally just talked about, Nagatinsky Zaton, right? Nagatinsky Zaton was the other one. Nagatinsky Zaton, that's how you say it. But, so that's what you have to look forward to, and I'm kind of excited about it. It's a pretty good selection, all things considered, even though we kind of got, I don't know, the wheel was really loving the Arbatska-Pokrovskaya linia there. But anyway, as always, subscribe if you haven't, leave a like, leave a comment. What did you think about that new residential complex that you saw? What did you think of those old buildings and just the general area around Alekseyevskaya so far? What did you think about the Plюшka? Does that look like something? And also, what is the name of the pastry that I'm thinking of that I just could not put into words? I know it exists, something like Plюшka in other countries. I know I've eaten them before, but I still, after thinking about it for a long time and doing a bit of searching online, I still can't figure out what it is. But regardless, you do all the YouTube stuff, and yeah, we'll wrap it up there. I'll be back in the near future with the second installment of Alekseyevskaya, but this has been Russia in Context. Thanks for watching.